A new game has entered the top 3 most expensive PS2 games of all time, which is kind of annoying considering a game that I may or may not have purchased the other day that is due to come in maybe a week or two from somewhere not in England. However, I don't know whether I'm going to end up getting it. Let me show you what that game was, shall I? So if we look at the CEX listings, as always, Gun Club and Kuon are number 1 and 2. But before, number 3 was Rule of Rose. However, right now it has been taken over by a game called Michigan Report from Hell, which I think I've seen before. I think I knew that was an expensive game, but I swear to God, it wasn't £525 for the regular version before. I swear to God, the price of that has shot up hugely. I don't know what it's about. I don't know if I'll ever bother getting it. I'm not exactly usually after just every single game, regardless of the price. You know, there is a little bit of rhyme and reason to the games that I tend to buy. For example, Kuon and Rule of Rose are both Japanese survival horror games, and therefore they're actually games that I want, and they're good investments. And we'll get into that in a second, because there's a bit of a comment thread that I want to reply to, a bit of a Q&A video, as it were. But yeah, Rule of Rose is no longer in the top 3 most expensive PlayStation 2 games. It is now in 4th place. So in that video where I spoke about the most expensive PlayStation 2 game, because somebody asked me if I would ever buy Gun Club, which is like £800 for the mint version or £650 for the just manual and boxed version, there were like 3 or 4 comments that said something along the lines of this. I'll throw it up here somewhere. Kale, in future editing, you better do that. Where people were like, oh, it's such a waste of money, you'd be stupid to spend that money, blah, 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 blah. But like, I've tried to explain this a few times now, that realistically it isn't a waste of money for me to do that, because there are 3 reasons, right? First of all, these are games that the price of them is only likely to continue to trend upwards. Kuon, Gun Club, Rule of Rose, Michigan Report from Hell, Silent Hill Shattered Memories of the PlayStation 2. These are all games that cost hundreds of pounds that did not cost hundreds of pounds when they came out. These are games that year on year are trending upwards. They're only going to get more expensive as time keeps going further forwards. They are an investment for that reason alone. That's reason number 1 why it isn't a waste of money. If you can afford it, it makes sense. There are plenty of games that I own right now that are getting decently expensive on PlayStation 2 that I could make money on were I to sell them, but were decently expensive when I bought them anyway. For example, my entire Silent Hill franchise would, in my head when I bought them anyway, decently expensive because they were like 30 to 40 quid a piece. Now they're all like 70 to 100 quid a piece. You see? But then there's also a little bit higher than that. For example, Haunting Ground, Project 03. These are games that when I got them, they were like £75 to £100, and now they're like £130 to £150. These old PlayStation 2 games that are expensive are only likely to continue to get more expensive. But the thing is that I'm never planning to sell any of these things anyway. But the reality is that if I were to sell them, I could probably make money on them one day. So it's not a waste of money because of that alone. But the reason that it isn't a waste of money even more than that is because my job is to make content on gaming, and that allows me 2 more avenues of this isn't a waste of money. Avenue number 1 is that it's tax benefits. It is tax deductible, right? So as a content creator, whenever anybody spends money on anything to do with their business, as long as it's wholly and solely for the business, they can reduce their profit. So for example, when tax season comes around, I declare how much money I made, and then all of my deductibles, and then I'm left with profit, and you pay tax on the profit, right? So that £620 that I spent on Kuon was a business expense. It is solely for these videos. I have put it in hundreds of videos at this point. So that reduces my profit by that reduces my revenue by 620 quid or whatever, is a tax deductible. But then number 3, and this is the most important one, is owning these games and showing them off makes me money, right? When I bought Kuon and made videos on TikTok about it, I'll try and throw up some screenshots somewhere, but I've done this before. Within the first week of using Kuon for content, the videos on Kuon had made £1,500, £1,500. So it had paid for itself within the first 2 days, because I think day 1 was £420, day 2 was like 200 and some odd pound. And then after that, it was just pure profit from then on in. And now, that was within the first week. It's been nearly 2 months since I bought the game, so it's pretty reasonable to say that owning Kuon has now made me over £2,000. It's why I don't take the sticker off it, because as a content creator, especially with short-form content like TikTok and things like that, you have got like 3 seconds to stop somebody scrolling. And because Kuon is... all of these games that are expensive are not very well-known games, because if they were, they wouldn't have got expensive. So when somebody sees the front cover of it, they don't know what it is, they don't care, they scroll. But because they see a PlayStation 2 logo and £620 on the box, they go, what the hell is that? And they don't scroll. They hang around for longer, that makes the video do better in the algorithm. They comment stuff. A lot of comments like that one that I'm replying to right now, decently hateful or hostile. But it's all engagement at the end of the day that then feeds into the video performing better and therefore making more money. And I promise you, every single content creator does this. Every single content creator has things that they will tax deduct. For example, if you watch a travel blogger, all of the flights that they do, all of the meals that they show on camera, all of that sort of thing, tax deductible, and they're using that to make money. That's just the nature of content creation. I'm just pretty upfront with how it all works, and because I wish that when I was like 18, didn't go to uni, was earning like 280 quid a month, working 4.5 hours a week at Tesco, I would have loved to have understood how these things work in more depth than I did then, or could find on the internet then. So I like making videos about that now, hopefully to inspire someone to be like, yeah, I could do that too. Because you can, because you really can. There is no reason that someone else can't do social media as a job if they put the graft in to make it happen. Realistically, that's just the case. But yeah, so it isn't a waste of money for me to spend silly amounts of money on games. It's just potentially a risk in the short term to do it. Because I can't guarantee that the videos are going to do crazy views and earn more than the game cost me. But I can, with reasonable expectation, expect that to happen because based upon, at this point, over 10,000 videos, years of making them, I can predict the viewing habits and how and what will and won't perform well when I post it on TikTok, which is where the majority of my income through social media is made, by the way, for the moment. On TikTok, amongst my accounts, I've got just shy of, at this point, it's not untrue to say just shy of 1 million followers, but it is about 920,000 followers across all of my different TikTok accounts. So I'm pretty well versed in the way that the algorithm works and how to make money and get views through things like that. And having Kuon and showing it in the videos on there, every single time I do it, the video will bang, the video will do lots of views and earn a decent chunk of money. So realistically, if I were to go and spend the £800 on Gun Club, or if I were to spend the £575 on that Michigan Report from Hell game that I showed you at the start of the video, that's just probably going to make the money back on itself. And even if it didn't, it will just keep appreciating because it's an appreciating asset, and also reduces my revenue. Yeah, comes off my revenue. You see what I mean? So it's a triple win and just makes sense. I would have been a fool not to. If I was in a... I'm lucky enough that I'm in a position where I can do that. I know that, like... For example, if content creation was not my job, there'd be no world in which I would spend the money on Kuon to do that. A lot of people are like, why would you spend the money when you can just emulate it? I might not even play Kuon. And if I did, I probably would emulate it, even though I own it physically, because it would look better emulated than on my PS2. It's just a case of, I like collecting games, and trust me, Kuon is a lot better off being stored and held in my game collection, where it will be in pristine condition for the rest of its life, versus wherever it may have ended up being, or God forbid, should it have stayed in that window at CX for any longer than it already had. Because I remember when I bought Kuon from CX, the staff in there were like, we thought this was never going to go. We've seen like generations of staff come and go, and it's just been sat in that window. We thought nobody was ever going to buy it. But like, this is what happens. Think about on a like monumentally larger scale. It's the same thing that people like Mr. Beast do. I did da-da-da-da-da-da, and this is what happened. You know, that sort of content style. That's just my spin on it, but in gaming, you know. I still, like I said, have rhyme and reason to it. Like, there are games that cost thousands, but I'm not going to be as absurd as to do that, because at that point, that's a much larger risk. And I also try to really only buy things that I actually do care about. That's why I am hesitant about Gun Club and that Michigan Report from Hell, because I don't really care about those, whereas Kuon and Rule of Rose, I do. So yeah, hope this helped you understand. Granted, the people that were leaving those sorts of comments are usually not the sorts of people that can be reasoned with logic and, you know, reason. Anyway, but yeah, next. The next generation of consoles won't have a disk drive, making everything redundant. This one is another not very well thought out statement, because even if, I don't think it's going to be the case, but even if the PlayStation 6 and the Xbox, whatever the hell the next one's going to be called, come out and you can't put a disc in them, I still have my PlayStation 5, my PS4, my PS3, my 360. I still have all of my consoles that have disc drives, and I still have all of my games that you can put the disc into. I think that people don't think long term about these things, a lot of these consoles are not completely backwards compatible in the first place. It's kind of why I've got most of them, along with the fact that I could never get rid of my PS3 because I love it too much. But like, even if the PlayStation 6 did come out and you can't put a PS5 game into it, it doesn't matter because I've still got my PS5. I wouldn't just get rid... That's a good question. When the newest consoles come out, what do you guys do with your old consoles? Say you upgrade to the PlayStation 6 tomorrow. Do you sell your PS5? Do you put it into storage? Do you just sort of decommission it? I tend to decommission things. Like, I still have a PlayStation 4 somewhere in the house. I think it's in Narnia, me loft equivalent. I need to recenter the camera a little bit. But like, yeah, what do you guys do with your consoles once you upgrade? Do you sell them? I don't know. I tend to keep them just in case. I have a lot of things just in case. It's why, if you look behind me, I've got like 4 DSs, because even though each DS is better than the last, I don't want to get rid of them, because A, nostalgia, B, what if something happened to the one that I do have, you know? So it's one of them where I don't understand this thought process of... A lot of people that are pro-digital games are also anti-physical, and it doesn't have to be that way. The more options we have as gamers to buy games, the better. If the only place we can buy a game from is the PlayStation Store, that is when we are just going to be spending monumental amounts of money on games, because we will have... In all business, monopolies are never good. If you can only buy things from one location, you are stuck with whatever the price of that game ends up being. You can't... There's no wiggle room. At least at the minute there's different marketplaces online. There are different shops that you can go to, kind of. Less than they used to be, granted. But like, you can find the same game for several different prices. You 30 of you that currently own a copy of GTA 5 can go and put it on eBay for 30 different prices. Yeah? But if GTA 6 comes out and it's only digital, that price will always be whatever it is on the marketplace, and you have no say in it otherwise. Do you see how that's a bad thing for gamers? That's a bad thing for consumers. So I don't understand why people that are pro-digital games, that prefer downloading their stuff digital, are so adamantly anti-physical. It isn't good for any of us. Even if you have a PlayStation 5 and you've never used the disc drive, it's still good that you have the choice to do that, because it's more options. We as gamers need as many options as we can have because it's good for us. It keeps prices as low as they can be. I mean, of course, they're still trending upwards, but like, you can still right now with your PlayStation 4, which is, I think the PlayStation 4 is still technically more popular than the PlayStation 5. You can go to CEX, spend £100 and come out with tons of games. Like, not every game costs a fortune, realistically. There are tons of good games that cost like £3 to £12. You can come out with tons of good games for your £100 and play for weeks, yeah? But if you remove the option going forward and everything is just digital only as far as future generations are concerned, then in the next few decades, it doesn't matter how old a game gets, the price is still going to be whatever the price is. We have a bit of a Nintendo situation there where the prices just never shift. And that's not what we want as gamers. I don't understand this. But yeah, discs don't just retroactively become redundant. The PlayStation 6 doesn't just come out and they send a man to my house and break all my old consoles and my old discs. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, I guess that'll do for this video, because otherwise I'm going to end up ranting for a little bit too long, aren't I? Hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, comment down below. What do you do with your old consoles when the newer version of it comes out? Do you sell them, keep them, just in case, give them away? I've done that before. I got a lot of family. Not that I see them very often, but yeah, there are people. See you in a bit.